Good day, students. Welcome to Religious, Moral and Life Skills Education 2. My name is Martha Nitembo Nehemia, and I'm your tutor. So at this moment, I will present an exam-based content class for this specific module. I wish you all to listen very careful and to take note of the information that I will share with you in this presentation. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to the subject, which I'm sure you are familiar with by this time, since you have, completed the assignment, and now you are just studying, for your examination. But you should have a good idea of what the subject is all about, and please take note that I will not make a presentation for the whole subject content. For example, I will not cover the whole study guide in this at this specific moment because I have a very limited time. So I will just highlight some of the important information that you need to take note of concerning your examination. If you want some detailed information, you can always contact me via my telephone number or through the email. So through the email, I will be able to give you a proper, written explanation if there's a need to, that you can always go back and read at your own time. Now, the study material for this module, we specifically use the study guide, which is written Study Guide for Religious, Moral and Life Skills Education 2. That's the prescribed material. And for your examination, you don't need to conduct any other, recommended readings or whatsoever that are mentioned in your guide. So the study guide, is quite enough to prepare you for the examination. There are also some textbooks that are mentioned in the study guide, but as I said, you don't really need to consult that. It's not really compulsory, but you can do that for your own information or to expand your knowledge on the subject. But it's not a requirement that you should really go out there and extra mile to get textbooks. You must complete the learning activities that are in the study guide. So as a means of self-assessment, it will help you to assess yourself. It is saying self-assessment, to assess yourself, your own understanding, and test how do you understand the content or how well are you prepared before the examination. I would like to give you a few learning hints of what you should do as a student, especially as a distance student. Before you study the actual content, first you need to acquaint yourself with the learning outcomes that are found, at the beginning of each and every unit. You find learning outcomes. Those are the outcomes that we measure. We set exams based on those learning outcomes because we want you to master those outcomes before you successfully complete the module. So it's a requirement that you need to master those learning outcomes as a student for you to move on to the next level. Those learning outcomes are at the beginning of every unit, and it will give you an overview of what the unit is all about and what are the important aspects that you need to master and to learn and to study about. You need to do all those activities, the self-assessment activities, to the best of your ability before you look at the answers. There are answers in the study guides, but I'm really advising and encouraging you to do your best first. Please ignore the answers at the beginning. Don't even look at the answers. Just answer the way you understand before, and later then you compare your answers to the answers that are provided in the study guide. That practice will, help you to learn and see where you need to learn more, where you need to add some information, where you are getting it wrong, and all those stuff. Because remember, you don't get tutors or lecturers in a classroom every day or so. So that's just a way of learning, especially when it comes to the distance mode. Use your study guide, as I said earlier, and take note of whatever readings that are provided there. Now, let's come to the examination hints. Make sure that you know or you understand the verbs. the thinking process, that are provided or that are listed in your study guide. At the beginning there's a list of verbs that will help you to understand, the verbs that we use when we set examination questions. For example, you find define. What does it mean? Because some of you goes in the exam room, you don't really understand what the verbs are. And if the question is saying define Christianity, you don't even know what define means or what is expected from you. So you need to understand those verbs. The verbs are, for example, we have define, we have describe, explain. There are quite a lot. List, mention, discuss. There's a lot of them. So you need to understand what does each and every verb mean before you answer the questions. Well, the study guide consists of 10 units, and all units will be covered in the examinations. Here I'm referring to all examinations, April, August, and the supplementary exams that always comes around November every year. I'm going to discuss some units separately and stress the most important facts that you need to keep in mind. You need to take note of those, and you need to get to know the facts by heart. So you need to remember some facts, because as a student we are not really motivating, memorizing, but you still have to memorize some of the things. And some things you just need to understand and apply your own understanding in the examination. Remember, when you are answering a question, factors from different parts of the guide can be applicable. So the question is not really limited to one part of the guide. You cannot say, okay, this question is just from Unit 1. It might cover information in Unit 1 and maybe another information which you find in Unit 5 or so. There are different types of questions in all examinations that will take place in a year. For example, you will find true or false questions or statements, which usually just count 1 mark each. You will find also short questions that count 2 marks. For instance, the definitions, when you are required to give a short description of something, of a concept or so. So make sure not to leave out any unit. And remember, I cannot, specify or give a hint of each and every topic that is covered in a true or false question, for instance. It's just too wide, so the whole guide is definitely covered. So you need to read and familiarize yourself with the whole content of the subject. In Unit 1, there are few specific, topics that I want you to emphasize on or to pay attention to. For example, you need to study about the aspects of belonging. What is it about? And you need to, in that unit, aspect of belonging, for example, you need to study the religious leaders, why the religious leaders are important, or why are they important in the society? What are the roles and functions that they have to perform? The typical tasks that they are entitled with. What do they do? So you need to identify those tasks. I just mentioned few here. For example, guidance and instruction to provide guidance and instruction to the members of their faith or their religion, to participate and contribute to the social and welfare activities of the community, to plan ceremonies and services, to provide personal support to people undergoing crisis, for example, illness, bereavement, and family breakdown, and all other social problems that usually take place in our societies. There are quite a lot. You can read about this very well in your study material. Still in Unit 1, you need to look at ways of showing others that, how do we show others that we love and value them? For example, what do we do? How do you show others that you really love them? So you can think practically. We like to read and memorize things that we don't necessarily need to. For example, how do you show your children, your wife, your mother, your parents, your siblings that you love them? What do you do for them? So one thing that you can do is to forgive them when something happens, between you. to accept one another. We are not the same as human beings. We have different attitudes, we have different qualities, different weaknesses, different strengths, and so on. So you need to accept the person as he or she is, to honor one another. Namibians or Africans in general, we have a tendency of just honoring people when they are gone. For example, when a person passed on, that's when you are now, coming up with all the statements. She was so important. She did this to me. She did that in the past. So I will not forget this person. Now you want to remember and whatever, but you failed to honor that person when the person was still alive. So buy flowers or go there, do whatever that you can do to show this person that you really honor this person. Don't wait for someone to die before you do that. Quality time is one example of how we show others that we love them. You have to spend quality time with them. If you are a family person, so we are all busy in life, but find a time, that you spend with your family if you really love and care for them. If you have your parents down somewhere in another part of the country, where, not where you are staying, so find time, plan somewhere in the year and go spend some quality time with them. Give them love, show them love. That's how we show love, to spend quality time with people, to receive and give gifts. I know in some African cultures, people don't really, believe in gifts. But it's an important thing. Whatever that you think that person, will really appreciate from you, you buy something or you give something that you can afford. It doesn't matter whether it's material, whether it's whatever that you can, give as a gift, the person will really appreciate and see that you really love him or her. Let's move on. 1.7, the importance of controlling some feelings is set out clearly here. First, what are the importance of controlling your feelings? We always have different feelings, depend on the circumstances and the situations we find ourselves in. First, you need to understand, it's very important to understand that your feelings can cause harm to others. So you need to control your feelings not to harm other people around you. So we need also to take responsibilities for the way we behave. And we behave differently depend on the situations. For example, if you are in a funeral, you don't behave as someone who is in a wedding. Or if you are in a graduation ceremony, you don't behave as someone, who is just at home watching TV, screaming and do all that stuff. Or if you are in a classroom, you don't behave as someone who's just in a shopping mall. So take responsibility of the way you behave at whatever occasion you are. Yeah, you need also to be there for others, because we are created as part of the family and communities. This is now leading us to Ubuntu, the African term which means that you are because of other people. So you need to be there for others, sometimes to support others, especially in different situations. For example, if there's a death or a wedding or whatever party, or just to support other families and then communities at large. Feelings might flatten or overwhelm others, so you need to control your feelings. Don't flatten people at the workplace or somewhere, so you need to control your feelings wherever you are and make sure that the feelings that you are expressing are really appropriate for that specific occasion. And fear may also cause others to freeze or flick out. So you need to control. There are a lot of facts that you can read about. In Unit 2, I want you to look or pay attention to the different ceremonies of our lives in depth. There are different types of marriage in our societies, or it can be in African whatever culture. For instance, I just listed few here, like civil weddings. Civil weddings usually takes place in a hall, and the judges, take care of the civil weddings. Sometimes people call it a magistrate wedding or something like that. A destination wedding, it's a wedding hosted often in a vacation-like setting. For example, if you are in Namibia, you decide, okay, although I'm from Kunene region, I want my wedding to take place at Swakopmund, at the beach, or I want my wedding to take place in Etosha, national park. So it's a destination. It's you pick a certain destination specifically for your wedding. A double wedding is when a single ceremony takes place where there are so many couples getting married at the same time. That's also almost similar to mass weddings. We have mass weddings, we have military weddings where military officers get married, and then they usually do that in their military attires or uniforms. And then we have white weddings, which is now popular in Namibia. For instance, you find most of the weddings people are wearing white and black. A lady wearing a white gown, that's a white wedding. A man in a black suit with bridesmaids and groomsmen and best men and so forth. So that's actually a white wedding. So there are a lot of them. You must just read about that in your study guide. People's attitudes and values in relation to elders in the community, how people behave, people's attitudes towards those elders. Remember, those elders in the first place, before we look at the content, they are our mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers. So what are our attitudes towards them? How do we treat them in simple terms? So we need to respect them. We need to look at different cultures, how they behave. For example, in most of the Namibian cultures, you find those elders are living in rural areas where they live in their homesteads with some people to assist them. But in some cultures, you find out that when a person becomes so old, maybe at the age of 70 to 80, they take them to the old age homes. So it depends. But what are our attitudes towards them? How do we assist them when you find them lost somewhere in a mall looking for a certain shop? When you find them in a house without food, how do you assist them? How do you treat them? That's very important. Then we move to Unit 4, the different religious festivals. I will discuss in this unit. And one of the topics that I want you to look at is how you understand the religious event known as the Last Supper. What is the Last Supper? This is more on a religious. It is a religious kind of event where Jesus, had the last meal together with his disciples. During the meal, Jesus blessed, and break the bread. And give it to them, and he said, take this, take and eat, this is my body which is given to you. And he did the same to the wine. He said, this is my blood. So you can read that in detail in your guide and find out exactly what took place, the whole event of the Last Supper, how it took place and what happened next. Now we move to Unit 6, where personal growth and its burials is discussed. What is personal growth, for instance? Personal growth is about improving yourself mentally, not to improve other people, not to suggest how people can improve themselves, but it's yourself. You have to look into yourself, how to improve yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. All the areas of personal development, aim to improve your mind, your heart, your spirit, and your body. So this is about your whole development as a human being. How do you improve that? Obviously, we need improvements. It might not be in all areas, but in some areas. For instance, maybe mentally you are fine, but emotionally maybe you need to improve yourself because maybe you are in a way. We have emotional people who become so emotional fast. Just one thing happened and then the person is so emotional he cannot even cope. Especially in the workplace, you need to be well prepared. As an adult working in a certain company or in a certain government department, some days your boss might not treat you as you expected, but it doesn't mean that you have to start crying and say, no, I cannot work today, I have to go home. You have to control your emotions, and sometimes you have to accept. It might happen that maybe it was an error happened, or you made an error in the office or something like that. But you need to control. You need to develop yourself to be able to cope with different situations. How to lift your spirit. We have people who are really down, people who are so negative, people with low self-esteem. So how do you pick up your spirit? How do you pick up just for you to be strong enough? And your own body. Don't neglect yourself. You need to develop your body. You need to take care of your body, from the food that you eat, the clothes that you put on, your appearance, everything, your fitness, your health. It's about your body. You have to take care of it. It's yours, nobody else. Barriers to personal growth. There are so many barriers to your personal growth. Why you are not growing as you expected. And they can have a greatest effect on your ability to create a positive change in your life. Sometimes we call these barriers as personal roadblocks. You know what roadblocks are? Roadblocks, by definition, I think or by the way we know it, roadblocks are when we have the roadblocks where we have police officers in the road stopping traffic and checking, asking several questions, asking drivers where are your driving license, the fitness of the cars, etc. So now, what are those roadblocks in your life as a human being? And how can you overcome those roadblocks or those barriers to your personal growth? Let us look at some of the possible contenders. Those roadblocks to your personal development can be like loose and defined goals. You don't have goals that you work towards or to achieve in your life. So I always tell people to, especially at the beginning of the year, the very first week of January, sit down, think of your life ahead and say, okay, in this specific year, what do you want to achieve? What are your goals? So, and if you don't want to forget them or to move, in a different direction later on in the year, you can write them down in your diary or somewhere, and so that you can always come back to them, and then they will guide you as the year progresses on. Like, what did you plan to do? So you need to set goals for your life. I'm not saying set goals for that one specific year, but you can set short-term goals, long-term goals. It depends, and please be consistent and work towards your goals. Otherwise, if you find a friend tomorrow and tell you, no, he's planning to establish a farm somewhere in Omaheke, then now your goal of maybe buying a house in Windhoek, now you move, or of studying towards a degree or a diploma, now you change your mind. Also, you want to follow another person's goal. You need to be consistent, and you need to stick to the goals that you set until you achieve, that part in your life. Then you can move to another one. You need to assess exactly where you are right now. You need to be honest with yourself at that moment and see where are you? What have you achieved? What have you done so far? Look at your age. Look at the achievements you have done. Look at what you can do. So we must live and act in a harmony with our core values. Look at your values. What do you value? What is important to you? And remember, some of the challenges or the barriers can be resistance to change. If you don't want to change and move on, you want to stick in the past. We have people who still want to live in the past, who always, refer back to the past and say, even my parents didn't do that. Why should I do it? So life is moving on. So as you and I. So we need to move on. Don't be resistant to change. What I'm advising is for you to see which changes are necessary, which changes are needed, and which ones you can ignore. For example, we all have seen that the world have changed in terms of the technology-wise. If I think back to the 90s, there were no these cell phones that we are using now. But look at, for example, in the year 2000 and the year 2018, even the elderly, the very old person in the village have a cell phone, and they know how to operate that. They know how to answer calls, how to make a call. It's a change that came in. and everybody almost embraced that change. So you need to look at what are the best changes, what are the positive changes that you can make to move on, to grow as a person. And in addition, you need also to take risks in life. Don't just wait to take comfortable decisions. Sometimes you take a risky decision, but as long as it will work in the best of your life. Like if you take a risk of studying maybe without enough finances, just hoping that you will, graduate and get better job and pay this debt and so on. It can be a better risk if you stick to your goal. Let us move on to Unit 7, which is about children's rights and also their responsibilities. Children have specific rights at school, in the society at large, at home, and so on. So you need to read what are those specific tasks that they are entitled to do. For example, at school, they are expected, to appreciate the learning opportunities that they offer to them, especially in this world that now we have a free primary education. So it's their now responsibility to make use of that free education, to work carefully with others, to respect the rights of other children, not to offend other children, not to abuse other children, not to bully other children and adults in the society, to respect, everybody, and to enjoy the learning experiences that they are getting at schools, to be polite and friendly with other children and adults in the society. They don't need to be aggressive. They need to respect people, to be friendly. I'm not saying they should not watch, or they should not be careful with strangers, because there are also some dangers in the society. So there are a lot of rights, children's rights and responsibilities. You can read that very well in your study material. Now, Unit 7.1, we have a concept, justice. What does justice mean? What does it mean? Justice means you need to give a person what he or she deserves. So what is it's in more traditional terms, giving each person his or her due. What is due to that person the person must receive what is due to him or her. It means also fairness. It also relates to the rightness, what is right and what is wrong. To be fair enough to do justice to human beings without, looking at their status or whatever other aspects that they are associated with. Then Unit 8 is a very practical unit, because it's all about you and your self-image. First, you need to understand what job interview is. We have a lot of interviews. For example, we all have seen journalists, interviewing people in the streets, at their workplaces, anyway. But then we are talking about a job interview. We are not talking about any other interviews that usually takes place. For example, as I said, the journalist interviews, the interviews that you see people being interviewed even on TV. Here we are talking about what do you do when it comes to the job interview. When you applied for a certain job and you receive a call or an email or a text saying, so you are shortlisted and now you will go through a job interview. What do you do? You need to, prepare yourself very well for that. Do some research, not even a bit of research, but do much of research, because it depends. Job interviews are not the same. What maybe you were asked at a certain interview may not be the same as the questions that you will get at another interview. So, but you need to be prepared. All in all, you need to know to correct some information on the company or the school or the organization that invited you. What is it about? What do they do? Their products, their stakeholders, their clients, and all those stuff. And then it's a lot of things that you need to do to prepare yourself for that. Let us now look at, and you need to prepare yourself mentally There are different ways of preparing yourself. You can prepare yourself physically to say your appearance. How would you appear at the job interview? So what outfit you should put in, how maybe you need to take care of your neatness, you need to wear very neat clothes, your hair must be done properly, you need to check on your perfumes and all those stuff. But now let us look at you mentally. How prepared are you? I know some people, becomes very, very afraid of interviews, so unrested, like they are panic. You need to cool down at that moment, and otherwise you will not be yourself and you will not perform well in the interview. So you need to prepare yourself mentally. How will you handle the interview? How will you answer the questions? You need to listen carefully to the questions. You need to pay attention to the people that are interviewing you, not to be on the phones and all those stuff. There are a lot of hints that you can read about. Now, the emotional, physical, and practical responsibilities of having a family. If you don't have a family right now, obviously you are planning to have a family one day. So emotional responsibilities. What are the emotional health? Why emotional health is so important for parenthood, for instance. So you need to be emotionally prepared to be a parent, to make sure that you will be able to handle the stress that will come with it. For example, if you become a parent and you happen to get children, how will you not be stressed by taking care and handling these children? Some of them, they cry too much, some of them they have too much demand, some of them are too active. How would you raise those children? You need to be emotionally prepared, otherwise you will find yourself with a high blood pressure, with stress and depression and all those stuff. You need to be realistic to yourself, be truthful with yourself about how you respond to the crisis in a day-to-day living. So because the problem that we experience today is not the same as the one that will come tomorrow. It doesn't only come from children, but even to the other people that will be part of your family. For instance, if you have a house and you accommodate 5 people, so each of them will have different issues. Issues will come in here and there. How will you handle them? So it's very important to prepare yourself. The financial responsibilities of having a family. You need to be financially ready before you decide on having a child. Also, your bank account plays also a major role, because this is not a secret. Children is very costly now. You need to make sure that you plan very well for the food, the daycare, or the person who will take care of the child, the place, the sleeping place for that child, the clothes, the beddings, and everything, So finance plays a role here. You need to be financially fit to take care of another human being, and that happens from pregnancy down through to the child's life. So you don't need to neglect a child. If you are bringing a child into this world, then you must make sure that you are really able to support and raise this child in a normal way. Important aspects of assertive communication. We are still in Unit 8. What are those aspects? What are those important aspects? I will not mention all because of time. You need to be honest with your emotions. You need to focus on the cause of the problems but not on the outcomes. You need to emphasize the result of the unacceptable behavior. You need to tackle the unacceptable behavior. Don't let it go, because it will still happen again. Even if it's in your family or in your workplace, when you pick up an acceptable behavior, tackle it, address it at that moment. Don't wait until the situation repeats itself 5, 6, 10 times. That's when you start now and say, yeah, I have seen that before. It happened, and I just looked at it, and so on and so on. So, and also you need to offer some possible solutions. What do you think should be done to solve the problem? The list goes on. Still in Unit 8, specifically Unit 8.11, how do you develop your personal attitude? You need to control your attitudes and reaction. You need to create a library of positive thoughts. We have people who are so negative in our society, but we don't need you don't need to be negative. You need to be positive, to have positive thoughts on yourself and on other people as well. ignore those negative people, ignore the complainers and the whiners. Sometimes we find colleagues who are so negative, and who, everything that they see is a problem, and they just complain and complain. Even parents, or even children, they can as well do that. So you need to choose your own happiness on life. Otherwise, you will leave this earth without any happiness. So for you to experience happiness, you have to cause it yourself. You have to choose happiness. Don't depend on other people. You have to be independent, and give yourself a permission, allow yourself to be happy, to smile and laugh, especially when you are experiencing when you are in difficult times. In conclusion, I came to the end of this presentation. I hope as students you picked something. As I said earlier, I'm emphasizing it again. You are not restricted to the topics discussed or highlighted in this presentation, but you have to read, and it's a must that you have to study the whole guide. So, but still give special attention to this content, but you are not limited to this content. I hope you understand what I mean. I wish you good luck, and please start early. Exam is very, very close. You need to read. You need to prepare yourself well in advance. Don't wait on the last minute studies, because you'll never know what will happen to your life. If you wait to start studying 2 days before the exam, maybe you will become sick. Maybe in those 5 days before exam, a close family member will pass on, or whatever crisis or problem you will find yourself in. So the earlier the better. Start studying, and study every day. Acquaint yourself with the whole work. Enjoy your study, make the most of it, and you will not regret it. I thank you.